Hi everyone. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to work with different time effects, such as time remapping, time stretch, time reversing, and freeze framing. Let's get started. Alright, I have this clip in here that I'm going to want to retime. This is what it looks like in regular time. And I'll just go through and show you some of our different timing options. So to get to our time options, we can either click on our layer, go up to Layer, Time, and then we have some different options here, and I'm going to go through all of these for you. We can also right-click on the layer and get to it from here. Time, and then we have our options here. I'll leave time remapping for now, and I'm going to start with time reverse layer. So that's pretty self-explanatory. If we click on that, all that's going to do is reverse the footage. I'll just undo that with Control Z. Next, let's take a look at time stretch. So what this allows us to do is let us speed up or slow down the footage just by inputting a number in here. If we want to double the speed, we can stretch it by 200. Now you can see it switched from 8 seconds to 16 seconds, so we just doubled it. Just going to move it back, and you can see now that it's twice as long. And if we play through it, it'll play slower. I'll undo that. We can also speed it up if we go less than 100. So if we want to speed it up, we can try 50%. And now it's going to play through a lot faster. I'll undo that to get it back to normal. And let's take a look at some other options here. Next we have freeze frame. So whatever frame our cursor is on, if we freeze it there, it'll freeze that frame. So now the entire layer is a frozen frame right there. So we can make a duplicate of this layer if we want, and we can have it playing, freeze a frame, and then continue on. And I'll just show you an easy way to do that. I'm going to undo the freeze frame, and I'll make a duplicate of this layer by doing Control or Command and pressing D. So now if we want it to freeze there, I'll right click on it, time, freeze frame. So this top layer is completely frozen, but this layer below it isn't. So I'm just going to drag that forward to where it freezes on that key, right there. And now if we play before that, he'll run and freeze in that position. Now if we want it to play a little while frozen and then unfreeze, what I'm going to do is split this layer right here. And we can do that by going up to Edit, Split Layer. And then I'm just going to delete that to get rid of it. So now we don't want it to play from here though, because it froze, but it's still playing underneath here. So what we want to do is continue it right after this frame. So now I'm going to split this layer right there at the freeze frame. So I'll go back up to Edit, Split Layer, and now I can drag this to where my freeze frame ends, and it should continue playing. So that's how you freeze a frame, and also how to go from regular footage into a frozen frame and back out. I'm just going to undo all of this to get back to where we were. And we can also do a freeze on last frame. So if I click that, it's going to play through here normally, and then you see this keyframe here was on our very last frame. So once it hits that one, it's just going to freeze on that final frame. And I'll just undo that as well. And last but not least, let's take a look at time remapping. Time remapping is an effect you see a lot. If you watch surf or skate videos, they can go from regular speed and then they can slow it down in certain parts, go into slow motion, back to regular speed. It's also used a lot in stylized movies like 300, where you're going from regular speed to slow motion, back to regular speed, and you can do all of that with time remapping. So to begin, I'll just right click on my layer, go up to Time, and enable time remapping. So what that did was add a keyframe at the beginning and a keyframe at the end. Right now it'll play at regular speed, but you can drag this keyframe to adjust the timing of it. So we can speed it up there, and then it's going to freeze on that last frame, or we can drag it past where we want and then drag this out and it's going to slow down that layer. So that's using the time remap like we would use the time stretch or even the freeze frame to freeze on the last frame if we move this up here. But you can also use this to go from regular speed to slow motion all in one clip. So I'm just going to undo that to get it back to where we were, and I'm going to start setting some keyframes. So I think I want him to go regular speed till about there, and then it'll start going into slow motion. So what I want to do is add a keyframe right there. And then I think that much of it I'll have in slow motion. And then I'm going to click again. Right now, since we didn't move them at all, it's still going to play regular speed. But we can drag this keyframe, and I'm going to get both of them because if I drag this, it's going to stretch this time out, but it's going to shrink the time in between here. So I want to undo that, grab both of these keyframes, then I can stretch out the motion in the middle here. So I'm going to stretch that out, and then I'm just going to extend the clip. So now what should happen is this will play in real time here, and then once it hits this keyframe, since we stretch those out, it's going to slow down here and then go back into real time. And let's just play through that. And we can also add in more in the same clip if we wanted. So right about there, if we want him to go back into slow-mo, I'm just going to add a keyframe and then scroll forward a bit to about there, add another keyframe, and again, we're going to stretch those out to stretch the time, and then bring that forward. So now he hits slow motion in there, back to regular speed, and back into slow motion. And that's how you use time remap. These timing effects are really easy to use and can give you a lot of extra control with the timing of your project. Alright, that's going to do it for this tutorial.